Hi guys, I have another Copic coloring and card tutorial for you today, and I'm using Dream Charlie by Little Blue Button Stamps. This, must say, is my absolute favorite characters of all of the Little Blue Button Stamps characters. She's so adorable, so every time I have the opportunity to color her, I just jump at the chance. And I had really much fun coloring her and coming up with the whole card. Before I start talking about the coloring, I wanted to do a little quick shout out. This month of June, there is a 30-day marker challenge or coloring challenge. It's Daily Marker who has it. You can find it over on her blog and everything. I am joining in by sharing a lot of colored creations over at Instagram. So if you want to see all of the 30 days of coloring over on Instagram, which I don't think any of them will be videos. It's all just having fun coloring. So the days that I have videos, you will get 2 colorings, one with a video and one without. But if you jump on over on my Instagram, which is Miss Pastimes, it's also in the link down below. If you want to come and join me there and see all the fun creations. I really love watching the Daily Marker 30 Day 2 challenge tag. A lot of people are joining in, which is just, they're making beautiful creations and I'm getting so inspired. But yeah, let's get back to the coloring. As you see, I have done my usual colors. I have started to actually start with the lightest color to map out my shadows. Then I go in with E11, which is actually the darkest of my skin colors, and go through to E21, E00, and then I go in with E000 as the lightest. I also use the R30 and R32 at the cheeks, and then I start all over again, and I start with the BV01, which is a purple, to kind of reinforce the drop shadows and maybe give a little bit extra darkness in the roundness of her cheek and such, and then go through all the colors again. When it comes to the blue colors, I actually used the hex chart by Sandy Alnock to pick out these colors and trying to match the papers that I'm using for today's card. I actually think it went pretty good. So I'm using colors that you probably wouldn't use together usually. It's blue, greens and blues, and they are all from different families. Almost. The blue greens comes from the same number family, sort of. But yeah, I had a lot of fun trying to get that bow to look a little bit realistic. Then we have her little tea/coffee cup. I haven't really decided which it is, which I just tried to get a little bit of a roundness to. And then into it I actually color something which is very dark tea or coffee. I still haven't decided which. The papers I'm using is from the Tea Time Graphic 45, so I think it's tea, something like that. And by the way, if you like the papers and you like this, I have also annotated 2 videos at the end, one using the same pattern papers and another one at the theme of coffee. So coffee and tea for this whole video. So I'm going in here in the hair and I'm trying to kind of give her some really nice zigzaggy highlights. I really like that kind of idea, so I started to experiment with it a little bit more. First I went in and kind of mapped out my shadows with the lightest color, which was E42. Now I'm going in with E49 and doing kind of hair wisps or something to try to give it a look of hair. Here I come in with the E44 because I forgot the E47. I will go in with the E47 at a later time, but if usually I go from E49 to E47, then E44, E43 and E42. I think those are the colors I'm using. I might jump over E43, I'm not sure right now. But so I'm going from darkest to lightest. Sometimes I go back from lightest to darkest. It all depends on how I like the result and how much depth I want to have in her hair. But here you see I go in back with the E47 to kind of smooth out the difference between the E49 and E47, 44, sorry, all over the place, because I think that E49 and E44 are a little bit too far away. They don't blend that good. This is why I've taken the E47. And when that is done, I'm going in with the E43. So I did use the E43 to kind of blend a little bit more. I try to keep as much of those highlights left because I really like how they turned out, all these ziggy-saggy. And for the last color, I'm using E42 to kind of go over those white highlights and kind of not have that much white left in the image. Then I'm using a little metallic pen for her wrists and a white Signo pen for those smokes in her cup. Taking a scissor, and as you see, as I said, I'm cutting her out just around the black line, so no white lines this time. This image actually fits very good of doing this, as there are no small protruding things. They all are kind of in blocks, so it's much easier to cut close to the lines, and I don't lose any of the stamped image by doing so. I'm also using a knife to cut out some white parts on her bow, and then I'm taking my Memento marker and going around the edges to kind of hide those white paper edges, and that also makes it look like I've cut it perfectly, even though I didn't. Here is the papers that I'm using together with some dark chocolate cardstock. I'm cutting that down to 5 3/8 by 4 1/8 as a mat for my standard A2 card base. And then I'm taking the pink cardstock and cutting that down to 4 and 5 1/4 to place on top of my mat. Here I'm going to do a angled, and I'm trying to get it angled as she is leaning. So I'm doing a sort of measuring, this is how I want it, and then I just cut an edge. Then I measure from that edge and gets 4 inches, because that is the width of the card, so that I get it from one end to another, and then I'm gonna cut it for a straight edge in the bottom of this, and that is how I get my angle. I could probably measure and not lose as much of the material, but I actually felt that this was the easiest way to do it. I measured once and kind of realized that it's a little bit too high, so I'm cutting off 1/2 inch of that, and that actually fitted it, gave it a little bit more balance. She gets to be a little bit lower on the card, and that was just how I wanted it. I also felt that there needed something behind her, so in this 8x8 paper pack by Graphic 45, which is called Tea Time, I think, they have these little cards. They are about, I think, 2 5/8, 2 11/16 maybe even, by 4 inches. So though they are beautiful little cards, so I'm gonna put these birdies behind her. I'm also gonna do a little sentiment. I'm cutting this down to 2.5, but you will see later that I'm gonna cut it down even more when I realize I have cut it too wide. I have already put together my sentiment and that was at 1.5 inch. I'm using some antique linen distress ink to distress the edges to try to get it to look as the edges of the paper. So I'm going around with that tool. Then I'm cutting it down there, as you saw, and I'm going with that antique linen on the edge. Then I'm going in with some frayed burlap to intensify the edges at the edges to make it look even more as the little reference paper I have in the corner. Now I'm going to use this stamp set, which came with the Simon Says Stamp June card kit. I'm gonna use 2 sentiments that together says "You make me smile." I'm using some VersaFine in the color of sepia. It actually has a green undertone, and I don't know if it's mine that has been miscolored or if it actually do have a green undertone, but I kind of like it anyway, and it's one of my few pigment inks that give this crisp, beautiful sentiment. Now I'm going to put them all together. I start by putting that little sentiment square on top of my makeshift table. If you have seen, I tried to get that angle also straight with the text, so that the text itself kind of gives you like boards in a table. I'm going around all the papers with some of that frayed burlap to hide the whites of the paper. And then I am using my Crafter's Companion tape runner and taping things together. I'm taping on the background paper, and I'm also using the same tape to tape on that little card. First I'm measuring so that I get as much of the card above the table as possible and still get a pretty good frame of the paper. Then I'm actually adding a little bit of tape on top of the edges of her arms so that I can actually stick her on top of the table, because I'm gonna put some foam underneath there and foam tape it on. I'm using some 3M Scotch foam tape. I really love that foam tape. It doesn't build too much and it sticks really good. If you push it down. You do have to push it down though. And if you're careful, you can actually move around a little bit before you push down. And that is the front of the card. So I'm taking a half sheet of basil marshmallow and I score that at 4 1/4 to make a standard A2 card base. I like to make my card bases myself, because then I can choose whatever paper I want, even though I usually use basil marshmallow or Nina Solar White. But that was the card for today. I hope you liked it. If you do, please thumbs it up. It means a lot to me. If you have any questions, comment down below. Down below you can also find all the details of the card. And here you see 2 annotations. If you want to see more videos about tea and coffee, you can also hit that subscribe button if you want to see more. Thank you so much for watching.